Misty, I'll give it just a couple more minutes and then I'm going to start.
Sounds good.
Misty, are you on?
If I can find my unmute button, yes, I am. Hello, sir.
Hello. Just to say, in case we have a low turnout, it took me 15 minutes to try and get into this place.
Oh, no. All right. Thanks for letting us know. I'm sorry to hear that.
Huh. And this was probably the first time I got in right away.
We try to keep the doors open, not closed.
Anna, you packing your bag?
I'll be your interpreter, Jer.
That sounds
Let's go.
good to me. I mean, the price is nice. The location. Are you familiar with that town? Where it is?
I am. Yep. I'm ready. My bags are packed. Let's go.
Whereabouts is it?
Puglia on the Adriatic side.
Oh, okay. Oops. We've been recorded already.
Oh, we're live on YouTube.
Yes, you are.
I just saw that.
Yeah, me too. That's right. It's just job employment.
Let's see. I'm gonna see if at least. Okay. You know what? It is 6:03. I'll wait till 6:05, Misty, and then we can start. I'll just give folks a couple more minutes in case they are having problems logging on.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, Misty, it looks like people have been able to log on. So if we could hit the record, I will begin at least with the meeting agenda. Thank you. Good evening. Board of Alders Notice, New Haven. The City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet on Thursday, March 4th, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. via video conference at https://bit.ly/2nwng4t and by phone at 646-558-8656 webinar ID 97906286362, to hold a workshop to hear public testimony at newhavenct.gov. Workshop to hear from Chief Administrative Office, Parks and Public Works and Livable City Initiative regarding the city's snow removal process, city's responsibilities and residents' responsibilities, and process for reporting residents when they do not clean sidewalks. Per order, Honorable Anna M. Festa, Chair. Attest, Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 Orange Street, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7833V or 203-946-8582 TTY/TDD. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2:00 p.m. on the day of the meeting. If you wish to present testimony at the meeting, you must register in advance at https://bit.ly/2NWNG4T or by calling 203-946-7934 or emailing publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2:00 p.m. on the day of the meeting for the required password. Public can view the meeting at https://bit.ly/2NWNG4T, or listen by phone at 646-558-8656, webinar ID 97906286362. The password to listen by phone only is 390093320. Welcome, everyone. And before I have my colleagues introduce themselves, I just want to go over some housekeeping matters. For one, I will be allowing the public to testify on this item since a lot of the questions come from the public. And if those speaking could just limit their time to, a reasonable amount, probably not to exceed 5 minutes. Also, after the committee has asked their questions, I will allow any non-committee member alders to ask any questions. Just please, everyone who wishes to testify, alders as well as the public, to raise your hand so we can let you in. With that, I will have my colleagues introduce themselves, starting with my vice chair, Mr. Alder DeCola.
Alder Sal DeCola, Ward 18.
Alder Gerald Antunes, Ward 12.
Abby Routh, Ward 7.
Stephen Winter, Ward 21.
Alder Singh, Ward 5.
Honda Smith, Ward 30.
And I am Anna Festa, Ward 10. So welcome, everyone. I appreciate you being here. The purpose of this meeting is, this workshop is to have the city explain the process to the public. There have been many, many questions that have come up regarding snow removal of sidewalks, residents' responsibilities, city responsibilities. There's also been a lot of questions about bus stops. So with that, I will turn it over to the panel. If you could all introduce yourselves, name and address for the record, and I will begin with the Deputy CAO, Rebecca Bombero. You're muted.
One of the side effects of Zoom. Rebecca Bombero, 122 West Rock Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. I will turn it over to Rick Fontana from Emergency Operations.
Good evening, alders and those who are on the Zoom at this time. My name is Rick Fontana. I'm the Director of Emergency Operations. I reside at 66 Putting Green Lane in Orange.
And we have Jeff Pescasolito.
Good evening, Jeff Pescasolito, Parks and Public Works. With me, I have Lori Lopez Anastasio. My address, 595 Whitney Avenue. Lori?
21 Lighthouse Point Terrace, New Haven, Connecticut.
We do anticipate other members of the administration, but I don't see them yet. But we do have a short presentation we can get started in the interest of time, if that helps.
Yes, go ahead with the presentation and then hopefully they'll log on. I know there were some folks having problems logging on, so go ahead.
So just wanted to start off with an overview. Hold on, for some reason, scrolling does not want to work right now. Okay, so we're going to start with our snow plan. Then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into operations during the snowstorm. Talk a little bit about the experience this winter. And as part of our process, I apologize for my dog in advance. We always are looking to improve. So some of the things that we're already seeing and thinking about for the future. So I'm going to turn it over to Rick Fontana, who has worked really hard to develop our plan, to give you a little bit of an overview.
And I'm going to interrupt you just 1 second to recognize my other colleagues that are on the call as well. I see Alder Marchand, Alder Rodriguez, Alder Edwards, Alder Ferraro Santana, and I think I have them all. And if I didn't recognize you, I promise I will. Thank you, Becky, and go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone, again. As you know, we had put together a new snow plan. This has been in operation for about 5 years. We started what we call the snow flow chart, and this only occurs when we expect to get 6+ inches of accumulation. And we utilize a few different weather applications. We utilize Weather DTN. We also utilize the National Weather Service. And then we also have an individual who provides us with really, real-time data and based on the city of New Haven. So we're not looking at areas around us. We kind of focus on the city and what our expectations are for weather. As you know, we have done, a lot of work in our communications. We feel that the communication is really second to none. I think we've done a great job. There's always room to improve, as Becky said. But when you look at what we need to do, we start off with that weather forecast. We look at school cancellation needs. This year was a little bit different with the pandemic and no school, but they did have some of the K through 5 schools were open during the storm. So we had to take into consideration those grade levels, but the other schools did not have schools. So it gave us a little bit of a advantage in allowing residents to park in all of the school lots. The pre-treating of streets, Jeff does, a great job over at Parks and DPW in looking at the needs to whether pre-treat with liquid. Sometimes you can't pre-treat with liquid because the temperatures are just too cold. And then he uses a granular type substance. And that is typically done at intersections, any are hills or steep inclines, bridges, overpasses. They've done a lot in front of the firehouses on the aprons as well. As you know, our biggest one of our biggest challenges is when we do a parking ban. We have changed some of our parking ban over the past few years. We changed the zones. Instead of doing a citywide parking ban, calling it downtown and the posted snow emergency routes in the residential areas, we just tried to make it easier. And again, we took this information based on recommendations from not only the Board of Alders, but also the public, because they said the messaging was too long. So we tried to shorten that up. It's worked out well. I will say it's not perfect. I'm not sure if we'll ever have a perfect snow plan based on the infrastructure of the city, but we continue to look at areas that need to be improved. We take recommendations and we try to move that forward. Okay, Becky, go on to the next one if you would. DPW equipment, I think we've done a pretty good job, and Jeff has really acknowledged and been out and purchasing not only the Class 8 trucks, but the smaller trucks. As you know, we have a couple of the large snow blowers. This year we had a little bit of an issue with salt, but not too much. I think that was more of the media pumping up what was the issue for those who were waiting in line for salt. I will tell you, we worked really hard together between our Port Authority and Gateway Terminal and our DPW folks. So we really didn't have an issue with salt. Our material has always been up to snuff. The plowing routes, and I just want to, I'll go through it real quickly, but we start off with posted snow emergency routes, our arterial routes, and then intersections in downtown. Those are always kind of, I don't want to say they're first, because we do work in coordination of getting the residential areas, getting the trucks there. There are 22 routes. They bring in outside contractors to try and at least keep up with the snow. And this year was a crazy winter. I think everyone understands. We had 4 snow instances where we had to activate the 6+ inches of snow. Just in doing a comparative analysis to last year, we had 0. So this year has been a lot more active. So the plowing routes have worked. They've been in the same routes for many years, long before I got there. Shoveling needs, we always run into an issue with helping out seniors this year, especially folks just after 2 years ago. They really had a difficult time in getting those crews available to help our seniors out. One thing that Jeff has always done, he reviews, quality assurance and performance review of the folks that are out in the trucks. But no matter how you look at it, we get multiple complaints because, unfortunately, when people clean their driveways out and the trucks come by, no matter how slow you go, you're going to put snow back on those aprons. And really, we sympathize with folks. And unfortunately, there's, Jeff has taken some steps to change the angle of the plow, doing education and quality assurance and so on. So a lot of that has and again, you can only do so much. The snow has to go somewhere. Unfortunately, it goes back into those driveways and on sidewalks as well. But they do a great job trying to minimize that. And then, of course, our post-snow concerns. I think we work really well with C-Click Fix, working together with VOC, which is our Virtual Emergency Operations Center interactive software that we utilize. And a lot of the times we have fire apparatus out there driving around the city, looking at where there are issues, and we always address our issues based on public safety needs. And we continue to say that, and that's probably the most important. Go ahead, Beck.
There you go.
Okay, our communication, as you know, we use the Everbridge system. We have used the Everbridge system this year, probably more than we've ever used it, not only for snow, but for updates on the pandemic, for vaccinations, for any type of communication to the public. It has worked really well. We also utilize the city website and Facebook postings. But I think our big thing is we use the snow line. And the snow line, you cannot leave a message. It just provides you information on the parking ban. When those blue lights are flashing, that means there's a parking ban in effect, and you call the snow line to get an update on what that parking ban, kind of the time frame of it. Our partners have really helped us out. And I say that in really earnest. We've worked, I think, very closely with the Board of Alders. I think, activating the Emergency Operations Center, putting the 8221 line into operation, having it fully staffed, I think has made a difference. I could tell you that in our first storm on December 16th, we had 29 Alder complaints. And on the 18th, the storm on the 18th, which was quite significant, we had less than half that. So we have made, we continue to make strides. We do have good coordination with the alders, as well as Yale University. They opened up 11 lots for us to use this year, and garages, and those are in the areas that are like most needed. Some of it in Newhall, some of it in the East Rock section, and some of it downtown as well. Those areas are always tough to park in. I want to mention the management teams in Town Green District, because we typically try to get the information out to those folks so they can push it out to their team members. As you see, the mayor has updated the snow brochures. We also have the traffic, transportation, and parking folks. They actually flyer cars with this at the beginning of every snow season, and we do give them to alders so they can pass out to their constituents as well. And it has made a difference.
All right, so now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the operations during a snowstorm. Jeff?
Thank you, and good evening. And again, I think Rick does a great job in explaining the whole process, which has been developed and improved over the years, many people involved. And you know, since I followed this since 1997, I think the city of New Haven has done a tremendous job bringing in people, making improvements through the equipment purchases, the materials, staffing and training, involvement from other agencies, education, and you know, working with our alders and the public, the communications. So I think we've done a great job. One of the things is, you know, again, as Rick had stated, 22 major routes. So every snow event in the city of New Haven, when we have snow, unless it's a light dusting, when we're plowing snow, there are 22 major routes in the city of New Haven. Each and every one of those routes is covered by one of our larger sand plow trucks. What we like to do too is complement those with additional vehicles. And again, we don't have a full fleet to put a smaller truck in each and every route. So we do that with the areas. So we do have problems that major trucks cannot get down some of these narrow streets. And as we all know, not everybody has the ability to park their cars in a nice driveway, or, you know, we advise people and encourage people to bring your vehicles to parking garages and parking lots. And again, that doesn't take place in all areas of the city. So our roads do tend to get a little narrower. Again, when we're looking at a pavement surface, curb to curb, 26 feet, you take away two sides and then get some snow buildup. It's very narrow for a large Class 8 vehicle and a 12-foot plow, you know, to go down those streets and plow those to something of a standard which we would like to see. We do supplement through the smaller trucks, but again, we don't have enough of those to cover all the streets in New Haven. It's something we're exploring as we move forward in replacing equipment. And over the last few years, the New Haven Parks Department has become very important to plowing snow in the city of New Haven. They tend to get into our narrower streets, specifically dead ends, and again, the narrow routes. I think we have divided our routes into 8 narrow routes where, again, we do rely on the city of New Haven's Parks Department to assist us. So, and we also, in the heavier snow events, we bring in subcontractors. And over the years, we've tried to substitute those contractors into the neighborhoods with some success, and we still do. If we have vehicle issues during a storm event, staff will relocate one of those trucks into the larger 22 routes so we can try and maintain coverage throughout that snow event. But for the most part, arterial roads, those are our primary focus. As Rick said, you know, we want to make sure we have safety, providing travel for everybody going through the city. We don't forget about the residential streets, but again, our main concentration sometimes is to focus on the arterial roads and our residentials. We get into some of those heavy snowfalls. When the snow is falling at a rate of 1 inch an hour, I don't care, state of Connecticut, who you are, it's very, very difficult to maintain and keep up with. You go around the block, it's very tiresome for an individual who is trying to maintain approximately 10 miles plus or minus on their snow route. At an inch an hour, it's very difficult to keep up with the snowfall of that event. But throughout the snow events, we're in great communications with the EOC, with the supervisors on board, with TT&P, again, supporting the snow removal through the towing exercise. But we do communicate well, and we try to get up and down each and every street. Sometimes there are difficulties, and some of the streets do fall towards the end of a storm, but at least we try to get that one pass. Again, it's our concentration to get to the curbs. We've had difficult times with that in the past. Again, at an inch of snow coming down per hour, again, we try to keep the center lines open so vehicles can get up and down, and the pushback becomes secondary towards the end of the storm. That's always been a challenge for DPW to get back onto those streets, clean those streets up to an expectations that our residents deserve. Again, as we're pushing snow, again, half the road goes one way, half goes the other way. And unfortunately, the open driveway aprons are the areas that suffer with that snow as we're removing snow. Each and every storm is different. We attack them differently. As Rick said, we have many different materials to utilize in each and every snow event, and we do utilize that material. City of New Haven did not have any difficulties with the so-called salt shortage. It was more of a distribution issue than a salt shortage. But we have always maintained that in our yard that we have plenty of material. Again, I think one of the concerns that we have from the operation side, and I'll make this quick, I'm sorry, is we need cooperation from our residents. The parking ban, it's very important. If you can provide us with that one side of no parking, we see that tremendously, that we can at least open up an area of travel on a road. We can push that snow to the curb, and we do take advantage of those streets, and it's very, very noticeable. And after a snow event, again, the snow stops falling. Parks, DPW, LCI, TT&P, we're still out there doing our jobs, trying to clean those streets. Again, residents, please, if we need your cooperation, do not throw the snow back into the road. Again, as cars drive on it, it becomes a hard pack, it becomes icing conditions, creates slippery conditions, I should say, and very difficult for us to remove. Also, one of the major problems we have in the city of New Haven is commercial contractors. Again, some of those are in the residential neighborhoods, a lot of them in the downtown areas. They take the material, that snow, which is illegal, to take the snow from private property and push it into the streets of New Haven. We understand there's going to be some difficulties, and I'm glad Lori's here tonight to fill in on the public space side. But we've had success in the past, and we want more success looking forward, moving forward with Lori's assistance to prevent these commercial contractors pushing that snow out into the road, causing obstructions, which therefore DPW has to come through and remove at a later date. So we try our best. We've had, I believe, about 7 events. With first event, 8 to 10 inches of snow, a 2-day event. But again, our job goes past the snow event. And the last event we had was more of a nuisance storm. Cost us the city a lot of money in materials, keeping guys on board, making the streets safe. That event pretty much went for 3 days. Temperatures dropped below some 0 temperatures. Roads iced up before the sun came out on a Saturday afternoon, and we felt comfortable that we could let our staff go. And in saying that also, Parks and DPW, we've developed a really good program over the last 2 years. We are maintaining over 180 plus locations, city-owned sidewalks that we are cleaning, and we're trying to keep up with our ordinances as well. 24 hours after a snow event, we want our sidewalks clean. So we've identified routes. Parks Department breaks it out into a minimum of 4 sidewalk crews, and DPW now with some other staff members in the department, because we're still out cleaning roads, they go out and assist with sidewalks as well. So hopefully that's a quick understanding of what we do. Again, any questions, Lori and myself are here to entertain these questions. Thank you.
And everybody's referenced TT&P a lot. Our parking ban is a big part of our situation, and Doug Housekeeping has joined the meeting as well.
And I'm going
Hi.
to interrupt you just 1 second. I just want to welcome our president of the board, Taisha Walker-Myers, as well as Majority Leader Richard Furlow. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead, Mr. Housekeeping.
Thank you. Doug Housekeeping, 115 South Water Street, Director of Transportation, Traffic, and Parking. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight before the committee, Madam Chair. The TT&P department is really a support operation, as mentioned by Director Pesca-Solido. You know, our efforts are in front of the storm and then in the storm cleanup, helpful in clearing narrow roads, but also our first priority is always the downtown and posted snow routes. And the reason for that is to maintain public safety. We want to make sure that the travel ways are clear in order to have first responders and other essential personnel move through the corridors. I think in review of this past winter, we had a number of parking bans, some pros, some cons, some lessons learned. I think for the lessons learned, some things that were good were, for the second and third bans particularly, we were able to get in front of the storms and enforce in front of the storms. So that's not something that we're always able to do based on just the timing of how storms come through. But this, based on the 8 a.m. storms that we had on the second and third one, we were able to enforce through the ban ahead in the night before, and then start in the first shift on tag and tow to support. Other things that worked out great, really, I think, were the flyering of cars and the communication. So in support of EOC communications, making sure that see-click fix emails went out, but also the blue lights got turned on and in conjunction with the Everbridge Reverse 911. Two other successes were, we did have success with our all-wheel drive vehicles that the board has approved in the past few years. We've been able to obtain 2 all-wheel drive SUVs, and that was able to keep us in the field longer. One, as Jeff mentioned, 1 or 2 inches. If you get to 1 inch an hour, you're not going to be able to keep up. In the second and third storms, we had to sideline our crews for a little bit, but we were able to stay out longer, particularly in the first and second storms because of the all-wheel drive vehicles. And other than that, I just want to say thanks, and we're here for feedback, and let us know how to do anything better. What really worked this past winter was the utilization of 8221 and the centralization of all requests going to the EOC, and that got farmed out very quickly and efficiently to staff. And we still have more improvements to be done with coordination, as always. It's always tough. Yeah, this year, happy with the team. We did identify a couple tweaks to our labor agreements that we'd like to make. We hope to work on those by next winter. Something that'll make it a little bit easier to staff our emergency response for TT&P. With that, I'll pass it back over and wait for any questions. Thank you, Rebecca.
So Frank is having trouble getting in. I'm going to skip over LCI for a minute, and we'll bounce back to that when Frank can get in.
I'm here, Becky. Can you hear me?
Oh, perfect. There you go. There's Frank.
Hi, good evening, everybody. And I apologize. I had a problem getting on, like Becky said, with the password. Anyway, I was able to call in, and I'm happy to be on, at least through the audio. Frank Diamore, 232 St. John Street, LCI Deputy Director, Property Maintenance and Neighborhood Services. So our real work begins when the snow lets up and stops. Our Property Maintenance Division, the city is a landlords as well. We have 120 properties, vacant lots, and some buildings that we have to maintain those sidewalks as well. So that's the majority of my crew's work. Maintaining those lots, we have a staff of 5 individuals. We're putting on 1 more. We feel the need for an additional body to help us maintain, quite a bit of work that team does. We do man the EOC, and I try to make my staff available for emergency call-ins. Sometimes, like I said, curbs, bus shelters, things of that nature. I try to keep my staff, available in case we got a breakaway. We have roughly 2 plows, 3 snow blowers, an assortment of hand tools, shovels, and stuff like that. Again, the majority of the work, is all hand work, sidewalks, that nature. We're housed at 225 Chapel Street. That's our LCI warehouse. And on the other side, the neighborhood specialists, we do the best we can trying to get out there. We have a specialist in every district, as everyone knows. And when, after the snow has fallen, we try to get out there and remind as many landlords and as tenants as possible, to clear those sidewalks. I know it's a problem. There are a lot of responsible landlords, but there's a lot of irresponsible landlords. And that does create a problem. I try to get my staff out there to remind people, send out flyers, send out notices. It's hard to send out letters after the fact because, we're trying to get this stuff cleaned up, within 24 hours, 48 hours. Again, a lot of people are diligent, but there are quite a few that are not. I'm happy to have, Jeff's, public space team with Lori overseeing, coming on board. It's going to be a big help for us to get them, and again, we'll be playing a supportive role with that. We'll be their eyes and ears in the streets. We'll be calling in and coordinating with them on a regular basis. We did do, notifications via flyers this year. And I think the last event we did like 76 notices. I mean, they're helpful. Oh, my other phone's ready. But they're helpful, putting people on notice. We stay on top of it. We do the best we could. But I said, I welcome the beefed up public space team coming on board. With that, I'll pass it over. If you have any questions, I'm going to remain on the line.
So I'm just going to breeze through this real quick to give people a summary of what we experienced this year. And I'm just going to go through it real quickly. We were going to share the load, but we had 3 minor storm events. And like Rick said earlier, 4 significant events, which are those 6+ events, December 16th, February 1st, February 7th. Those back-to-back events are always tricky. Because you're not done cleaning up the first one when the second one happens. And then the 18th and 19th, which Jeff referenced, was that event that never ended. VOC, as Rick mentioned, is the portal we use during the snowstorm. Anything that folks call into the 946-8221 gets logged there. And Rick kind of nodded to this. We had more calls on the first 2 storms and got better and had fewer concerns on those last 2 storms. C-Click Fix is another portal. This you can do from your computer or your phone. We use the snow-related category to track those requests mainly, and those come in both during the storm and after the storm. Our departments monitor that category continuously. There were 438 concerns logged into the snow-related category. Just digging through that, 117 of those had the word plow in them. 11 had the word bus stop. 117, again, strangely similar to the plowing number. And then 42 about the parking ban. Public space enforcement, Jeff and Lori talked a little bit about this earlier, focused in major corridors and commercial areas. Our first inspector had started in the fall, and while Lori, the supervisor over there, only started this week, we're very excited about that. Mark was able to accomplish a lot, focused on face-to-face education and communications, and 220 warnings were issued. Parking enforcement, again, the 4 storms, each was a little different. As Doug mentioned, the duration, the timing all impacts what we can do. What also impacts what we can do is the capacity from towers. There are 15 towers, and many of those tow trucks will break away throughout the storm. They're also limited by the number of spots that are in each of those lots. So we do max out on tows before but we'll continue with citations during the storm to help reinforce. And again, that focus is the posted snow routes, and then we move out and downtown, and we move out to the residential areas based on experience. Those areas we know are tight, areas identified by DPW and our fire department as tight and needing better egress. And then those concerns that are flagged through 8221 or through C-Click Fix. And that helps drive where the crews go. Again, we can't get everywhere. The goal, though, is to change behaviors. So in the next storm that people do better and we don't have to tow people. So like I said, we continuously try to improvement. One of the things we're going to work on between now and the next storm is using GIS, which is a great tool, and matching that against the bus stops. Those are known fixes. So we'll match them to the property and notice the adjacent property landlords so that they're reminded of the shoveling regulations and reinforce the expectations around those curb cuts and the bus stops. More robust public space program. Jeff and Lori talked a little bit about this, but building out education and enforcement, warnings, shorter timelines, remediation and cost recovery. Lori and Jeff, you want to add anything here?
Process. No, I think, Beck, we with Lori just coming on board, she's really already gotten involved in the process, and we've talked about stepping up how we're doing the warning and citation process. And I think, so there's 2 people now in our public space division. The first individual came on right at the start of the snowfall, and I think he was thrown into storm number 1, and I think moving forward, he wrote in excess of 200 warnings to New Haven residents, and he had a lot of success. So I think Lori's going to take that same approach, but we mean business. We want safety, clean sidewalks.
Site plans reviews. In talking with economic development and city plan, we want to address these problems before they happen. So working with new development and ensuring that they have a snow management plan during construction. A lot of our construction sites tend to be offenders on snow removal, so making sure we address that. But also a snow management plan on build out so that there's enough space for them to, have the snow on site and not impact the public right of way. Parking ban improvements, Doug had mentioned a lot of this earlier. Greater coordination with the tow companies. We might want to look at the tow fees. We lose some of those tow trucks to the AAA calls because they pay more. While we don't want our residents to have to pay more, it might be the price we need to pay in order to get through a larger portion of the city with the ticket and tow operation for snow bans. An improvement process for blocked fire hydrants, as that's a safety issue on parking cars. Finding those fire hydrants takes a little bit of time in our tag and tow process. Review capacity, it takes a lot of time to get through those posted snow routes, and there is the limited capacity within the tow yards. Continuing to work on education with the streets that have no parking on either side during the storm, so they have a parking plan and they know where they're going to move their car. And Doug flagged earlier the contract negotiations, so we have more reliable coverage on enforcement officers. And then ordinance considerations. One of the things we noticed in this storm is the ordinance is good about the 42-inch ADA pathway to the through the sidewalk, but not necessarily where that is, and reinforcing, especially at bus stops, that 42-inch ADA access should be to the curb to allow good access for the bus, and also the handicap ramps. And also want to review our warning and notice provisions to make sure that we're striking the right balance between those notifications to remind people they have to do it and when we can issue the warning, because there is a time lag. You get to 24 hours after the snowfall and then you have 24 hours to correct it. And by that point, everybody's sick and tired of the snow already being there. And I know we've taken up a lot of time, so I'm going to turn it back over for questions.
Hey, Becky, can I just add one thing? I think that's really critically important to acknowledge. And Doug's team, as you know, on the 16th of December and the 17th of December, we had our first snowstorm, literally with last year being none, Here we are in a pandemic, so staffing is a little bit shorter. But we didn't even get a chance to like dust everything off, and we had a literally a small exercise, but here we are on getting a major storm on December 16th. We're not used to those until January. We like to get a couple of small ones, but we had a major storm. And if you look at the enforcement on that date, there were 162 citations, and out of those, 151 were tows. And then on February 18th, and there's nothing more important than when we're on the phone and we're updating, the alders, and the alders are saying we've got to see more enforcement because people are complaining that people are doing their part and people aren't, and some others are just parking where they want. But on February 18th storm, we had 473 citations with 270 of those were tows. So a significant difference. And I can tell you that my conversation with Jeff is if there's cars in the road blocking them, they can't get the plowing done. So, kudos to traffic, transportation, and parking. I know that there's always a staffing challenge. They're out there before the snow comes, during the snow. But we did see in our last storm a huge improvement. We will continue to get better. There's no doubt about it. We will continue we take this really seriously, and we'll do better. And with you giving us some of the guidance that you're getting from your constituents, we'll continue to get better. I don't know. If perfection, maybe that's up in Vermont, but in New Haven with the smaller streets and the infrastructure, it's going to be tough. But we appreciate all the hard work that the alders have been really forthcoming and providing us with information saying, hey, take a look at this. And I think we've tried to do that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation. I think it sheds some light into how we manage some of the storms this year. Of course, my concern were the citations. So I'm glad to see that those increased as the storms, as additional storms came our way. We do such a great job with our street sweeping with the citations that are giving out that we need to keep that level of consistency when it comes down to our snowstorms as well. It's probably even more crucial because, as Jeff mentioned earlier, in order for they to plow to the curb, cars need to move. And that's all we're asking of the residents, is to please move your car to the even side or to one of the schools or one of the parking lots. So I'm happy that something is being done about that. At this time, I will open it up to my colleagues for questions. Becky, I don't know if you want to take down the presentation, unless you still need it. Okay. So colleagues, I will start with Alder DeCola. Do you have any questions for any of these departments?
Not generally to one department. I want to thank everybody. Great improvement over the many years. But we keep talking about education. It's time to start fining and citation. We're not doing anything with the public schools, contractors that push snow in the street. They're filmed by the school cameras. We have them on record. Nobody does anything about it. And I could go down the line with the schools. We must stop educating and time to enforce. I have contractors in my neighborhood who push snow into the street, into the intersection, and into the handicap ramps for crossing the street. We just need to start enforcing it. I'm glad that we have more inspectors. When the snow comes, call me. I'll tell you what houses to go to. Just cite them. And we need to start being rough with our residents. It's the contractors that are doing the most damage to our streets. It makes public works look bad because they're cleaning up messes 3 times over. And I'm just frustrated that we're just spitting in the mud here. We've been through these meetings before. It's time to enforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Does anyone want to speak on that?
I will speak, I guess. Alder DeCola, thank you very much for that. And we're very excited to have Lori on board and, be building back out the enforcement division. I know Alder Smith can probably attest to this. The more inspectors you have an ability to do so, the greater ability we'll have to enforce these regulations. So we will be in touch with you for that list of places we should keep an eye on.
And the contractors that clean the
you.
school parking lots, because that is a big issue. Okay, thank you, Alder DeColo. Alder Antunes, any questions?
Oh, yes, I mean, I have to agree with Alder DeCola, but I'm glad that there's more enforcement on the cars that are blocking the streets. However, I don't think we should be penalizing our residents just to be competitive with AAA. Maybe we can look at these towing companies. They're licensed by the city. Can we make it a condition of their license that they have to be more available during these snow parking bans?
We'll definitely look into that. Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you. That's all I have now.
Thank you, Alder Antunes. Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you everyone for your presentations and we had a lot of snow this year and could see that you had very long nights, and that's appreciated, all the work you put into it. And also I definitely got compliments from residents about cars getting tagged and towed, and that had an impact, and people really appreciated that. So thank you for that. I do have a couple of questions. One thing is, I know I've spoken to Director Hosleyden about this, and he's tried to nudge it. Yale, I appreciate that Yale has the lots. Yale has not been very good this year on sharing announcements when there's a snow parking ban. Because I happen to work there, I get their emails, and in past years, they would let us know. In one of the storms this year, they sent out a note, and I would write to Karen King, who passed it along to people. She was wonderful doing that. So I don't know who makes the decision to send it out, but the one time they did send it along, I think a lot of people near where I live are Yale students, and they saw someone moving cars. So like, oh, we got a note from Yale. I mean, I don't think a lot of them are on like my Alder email or on city email, so they don't know about it otherwise. So I don't know what we can do to get Yale to send out the snow ban information to people. Maybe they think their parking notice makes it clear, but it doesn't really have any of the details as to like what the snow ban, when it starts, what it means, or anything like that.
Rick, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Thanks, Alder Roth. And I think after you had brought that to our attention during the last storm, I reached out to the emergency management director, George Hines, over at Yale. And you're right. In past snow seasons, they had utilized their Yale alert system to alert all of everyone, anyone that was within their system, and that communication we think made a difference. What he had said to me was that they were doing it through the colleges because there were not as many people that were here due to the pandemic. But he has made a commitment that they will do the same thing going forward as we have done in the past. So you can expect now a Yale alert when the city has a parking ban. So hopefully that's taken care of. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Great. No, that's great to hear that update. My second question has to do, and this is something I heard a lot about this year too, the bus stops. And I appreciate it, Becky, you're talking about how a new system's going to be used. And so I just want to make sure I understand. It sounds like, and from some conversations I've had with Doug, that it is even though bus stops are, I've always thought they were state property, it's the responsibility of whatever private property owner abuts it to actually clean the bus stop area itself. It seems sort of counterintuitive. So maybe if you could just walk through exactly who's responsible and then how we're ensuring those people know that and aren't also thinking it's the state's responsibility.
So the bus stop is part of the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner. As I indicated, the ordinance might need some additional clarification to help enforce that, but it is the adjacent property owner. In the past, and when we have capacity, LCI will help to supplement. Unfortunately, as Frank mentioned, they're down a staffer right now. We haven't had reimbursable events, so it's been difficult for the city to bring on extra contractors to assist with that. But it's definitely something we know was a weakness this season, and we'll be working to address both through the education, through clarification of the ordinance, and working through our public space crew on the enforcement side.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I do wonder sort of how much is enforcement, but how much on the front end is just education. Because I always had thought it must be, like, it seems logical that it would be the state because they're state property, but note it what it is. And then just I also appreciate it. I want to say Mark Clinton in public space was wonderful in following up, and it's great that there's a second person now to help with that. I just wanted some clarification. I appreciate the slide that talked about like a new approach, a shorter timeline. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, shorter timeline, maybe just to walk through what is being considered with that slide, because definitely kind of people not shoveling sidewalks is another thing one hears a lot of complaints about.
So, we definitely hear it from you guys. We hear it from residents. You've got 24 hours after the snowstorm to clear your sidewalk. And that is the point where we can issue the warnings. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff and Lori, it's another 24 hours after that for the citation?
No, I believe we can go right into citation, and we can also assign city crews to make the sidewalks passable, either by clearing the snow to the minimum 42-inch requirements, or by putting some type of material down as a sand salt mixture, and again, bill the abutting property owner.
Thanks. And yeah, and I guess maybe to a little bit echo what Alder DeCola said, I think Frank mentioned that there's sort of, many people who are good, but some who are bad. Some of the big landlords, is there a list of people who know, year after year, storm after storm, aren't shoveling, and just kind of be on the ready to go to those locations and cite those people after the 24 hours pass? That might be a good approach if it's not already done.
Yeah, I think with Alder Smith's past records that she has built up here in the Department of Locations, and having Lori on as the supervisor for public space, we do have a good file of locations. Our own staff can provide those locations with the commercial properties pushing the snow out. So yes, we do have priority locations that we will be concentrating and monitoring throughout the snow events moving forward.
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, and then just one final comment, and I'll let my colleagues speak. I know we got a few notes to the committee. I just want to say I definitely support the idea of clearing the canal path because it is used by a lot of people to commute, and I appreciate it. I think it was Alder Winter a couple of years ago who first raised that issue. So if that's able to be done, I'd be very supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Roth. And while we're on somewhat of this topic, who should residents contact? I know we have See Click Fix, and they can put their complaints on there with pictures. They've complained to us, at least, I could say I've gotten a few emails with pictures of residents complaining about certain sidewalks. If folks are not computer literate or prefer to make a phone call, who should they call other than us? Because there was some confusion. Should they call LCI, DPW, EOC? What is the process? What is the proper process?
Great question, Alder. So the best way, and we try to communicate that out through the media, through the website. The easiest way to get an issue handled immediately, if someone's not techie and can't go online, 946-8221. Even when the EOC is not fully activated, that goes into 911, and those are then posted into VOC and taken care of. I will tell you, if an alder calls in off hours and speaks to one of the dispatchers, I'm immediately notified, and we work together with whatever department head has the responsibility of that issue and is taken care of immediately. So that's the best way. 946-8221. Please provide that number to everyone. We keep it on all of our snow flyers. We try to get it out to the media, on the website, on the city website. So that's the best way.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. It's very
Welcome.
helpful. Alder Winter, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on that line of questions, is that still the case? Let's say it's 2 days after a storm, somebody still hasn't shoveled their sidewalk. You know, you get someone's complaining about it. Who should they call? Is it still the EOC, or is it then DPW because it's public space, or what?
Alder Winter, I think that, DPW does have a phone line that they answer as well, the 7700 number. But I will tell you that, and that's during business hours, 24/7, 365, 946-8221 will be answered by either someone in the EOC or a 911 call taker, and we'll get that issue, at least the beginning of it, getting addressed, if not trying to get it done immediately.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I also receive a fair number of complaints about bus stops, but it's a different complaint. It has to do with plowing. And so snow is being plowed in front of bus stops, and I've reached out to DPW. We've been able to clear some of it up on a one-off basis, but it seems like for residents who are trying to get onto the bus, they often find that snow is being pushed in front of the bus stop, and this is a chronic issue in a number of places in my ward. And I understand that the objective is to push the snow, but how are we handling the street side of bus stops? What's the protocol there?
Again, after a snow event, during the snow event, of course, DPW staff is out clearing the roads. And even after a snow event, we're still trying to do the pushback. But we know where those locations are. Not all of them, but we're trying to get a better understanding. And I think Rebecca had mentioned through the GIS platforms that we have access to, moving forward, we can do a better job clearing those. The crews, as mentioned, the sidewalk crews of Parks and Public Works, supplemented again, Parks, and through, believe it or not, our Bridge Division. They tend to help us out in some sidewalks. And as does our Refuse Division, we will address those areas. So some of the problems where there's mounds of snow, again, you need machinery. We will address those with the vehicles. And the smaller areas like bus stops, we can get those with the sidewalk apparatus. But again, like Rick had stated, get those calls into the EOC and we will address those as soon as we can.
Another, similar to Alder Roth's discussion of Yale, how do we handle charter school parking lot availability? In my ward, there's Amistad High School, and it doesn't seem like that's part of the city workflow currently, or maybe there's no agreement with them, but could we clarify that?
Yeah, currently no agreement, but it's certainly something we can have a conversation with. I've never engaged in that. Those are state charter schools, and obviously we can reach out to our folks that work with the state to see if that's something we can work out. But good point. Hadn't really thought about that.
That would be really helpful, because I think the default right now is having to reach out and request it, rather than the default being, hey, there's a snow emergency, this is the expectation. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, likely, I think the easiest thing to do is, rather than ask for permission, just beg for forgiveness. But we'll get you an answer on that, Alder Winter. Good point, though.
And then I would echo with the canal path, we're making some progress. We're now clearing up to Shelton, but then the last stretch from Shelton to the Hamden line doesn't seem to be getting done on the first pass. But I do think that is really important for folks who are using it to get to work, or people who are just using it to get outside. On the emergency alert system, do we have geographical data on emergency alert penetration? Like, hey, here's a block where we're really deficient, or here's a block where we're really doing well with this.
I'm going to turn that over to Rick.
Yeah. So we actually do not have the ability to have geo information on who's responding and who's not. We do get those responses for someone to say, "Hey, I never got that message," and we can actually go in and review whether they got it, whether it went to a voicemail, whether they got it and they hung up. But we do not. It is not like geocoded based on areas.
Where
Sorry.
they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Could we work in an entry point for the emergency alert system into a city communication that's related to like voter registration, or in talking with Director Houselayden, he had a good idea, which is maybe we could put it on with car registration or car taxes rather, so that if you paying your car taxes, you'll also see, hey, you've got a car, you might be parking on the street. Here's how you can sign up for alerts related to street sweeping, snow plowing, just as another way to get people into the system, particularly as they move to New Haven.
I think that's a great idea. We can work with the finance division and the tax office to see if we can get an insert into the next tax bill for autos. One caution on that is folks that are on a lease may not see that.
And then who monitors the sidewalk shoveling requests that go in through C-Click-Fix? Because I noticed, I was looking at this before the meeting, and some of them, it looks like, still remain open. I assume it's someone at DPW, some part of DPW.
Yes, that is correct, Alder Winter. We have staff here, the complaint response unit at Public Works. They try to review those and update with information as they're being cleared or closed out at the same time as well.
Okay, thanks. And then a couple more things that just seem like chronic issues. One is there's a couple blocks in my ward where residents are really good at moving the cars, and then they'll report on C-Click-Fix that the plows didn't come close enough to the curb. Should they just call the snow emergency line, or I assume it's like you all are focused on the middle of the road, and that's something that we would have to come back and get later in the process?
Jeff, you want to?
No, I think. I'm sorry. Do you want me to handle that back, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I think again, I think we want to utilize and stay with VOCHI, the 8221 number. Again, staff should be reviewing it on the Parks DPW side and getting that information out to staff. Again, we have great radio communication, so there's no reason why we can't get a quick call to a driver in the area to go and do the job cleaning up to the curb line.
Do C-Click-Fix issues generate VOC issues, or is that a manual? There's a manual step there.
It is a manual deduplication process.
Is that something that either software provider could accommodate? That seems like it would be really challenging.
They are competitors, so
Ah, okay. I see.
they
One,
do interface
clarify-
on some workflows.
Pardon me, just to clarify, sign requests from C-Click Fix, signals requests from C-Click Fix, all generate work orders automatically in VOC for the TTMP department. So it's not because they're competitors, they can totally do it.
That is fair. It's something we can look at more closely.
okay, one last question. I know there's this gigantic snow blower that I've heard of and I saw once, but what is the role of that equipment? Is that something that we can request if if there's a street that really needs more snow removed after the days after a storm?
Yes, most definitely. So the city, we do as a department, Parks and Public Works, we house 2 of those large snow blowers. They are used in a team of trucks to transport snow in large areas. Primarily, they've been used in the downtown area around the hospitals, and they're beautiful at opening and widening the streets. In the past, we have used them in the residential neighborhoods where we will work through the EOC and in conjunction with TTMP, remove the cars. And if we have access from block access, of course, you can't do, 50 feet at a time, but they are great at removing snow, and requests from alders and other areas, specifically emergency services, fire and PD. We do that work. We've done it primarily at night, but you will see those blowers as needed during the day as well. And there's currently a mound of snow in the city. Hopefully it could be melted by now, which is a good thing.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Jeff, Becky, Rick, Doug. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Winter. Alder Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say thanks to Parks and Public Works for a great job this season for doing the plowing. One of my issue here is education. I've been having it a couple of ways. Some people have their car towed, which I'm sympathizing for, and then some called me car didn't move and the street didn't get plowed totally, so it's open up. So I was thinking, like in the fall issue, I know my colleague touched on it earlier. Is any way we can do a mailing flyer in the falls that park on even side or outside, or you need to move your car so residents, have that information? Is that a possibility to mail the flyer out with the information?
We can take a look at that and try to identify a funding source to cover the postage on that.
Okay, because I think once you educate them, and they, a lot of people does not know, well, you can't park on the outside, people think, and I try my best to send texts and word of mouth and, a little bit of flyer, but there was a lot of concern that people need to educate a little bit more on that. So if we can find a way with that, I know my colleague touched on it, if we can do an insert in the tax envelope with one of those flyers, if it's possible. So at least, 80% would have that information.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Singh. Alder Smith, who we're happy is on this committee and can guide us on so many things.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have so much that I want to talk about. First of all, I want to thank all of the departments that are here. I'm going to just take my time a little bit here. We talk about snow, how many hours. And I just want to correct you guys a little bit. Don't mean any harm, Becky.
Oh, you are the expert on this. No harm at all.
But the ordinance states after the snowfall, that's when you give them the citation, after the snowfall. Now, what I have done previously was give them enough time. That's why we say 24 hours. But we have to start dealing with the ordinance for as it is. It's been too long. We've been educating the residents here in the city of New Haven. For the last 7 years, residents has been notified through flyers, personally walking to doors, talking to people, talking to them at community management teams in regards to the aspect of public space. Now, once again, I've explained this numerous of times of how the departments actually work. Public Works is in control of all of the sidewalks. That means public space issues. They're actually the enforcers. They are the teeth. They are the ones that do all of the enforcement. Nothing goes or is beyond them, or no one can make any decisions but Public Works. The public space inspectors have that control from the back of the sidewalk to the middle of the street. That means anything that's on the sidewalk or in the street that is of violation, they have the right to fine them. And they can give a fine from $99 to $999. That's the teeth part. That's what we're missing, is more inspectors that can really put the teeth, the nail to the glue, or the hammer to the nail, whichever way you want to call it. Now, I get so frustrated at times because knowing the way the system actually works, it can benefit this city tremendously. It can benefit the residents tremendously. But what we really need to understand how these departments actually work. What are the functions? Then we can put all of these things together and know how it works. Now, when it comes to the responsibility of the residents and the property owners, the ordinance states that the owner of the building is responsible for any violation that happens. And they just don't have to give one citation for one violation, because there's many violations that comes out of that one. It says engineer controls the infrastructure in construction. Parks controls the trees and park land. That's charter. And once we follow all of this stuff, then we wouldn't have a problem. So we need more enforcement, yes. And we need to know how the functions, these departments function. Now, I'm sorry, but I get very passionate about it because I know how it actually supposed to flow. And I'm happy that Lori is on board, but I've done this for 20 years by myself. I didn't have any other inspectors. And I collected revenue that was over $100 and something thousand for 6 months. So this is a revenue builder for the city with more people that is involved. And I'm grateful that they have Lori and this other inspector, because we need to stop doing education, Jeff, and we need to start enforcing from Public Works to traffic and parking, more enforcement, because I've seen a lot of that stuff happen. And we need to stop pacifying residents that really know what needs to be done. And we hear this over and over and over again. I don't have any question. I mean, I'm here to lend support in any which way. And I've said this numerous of times. I'm here to give you the support that you need to show you how things supposed to flow and how they work. When it comes to removing the snow, and you have to clean the streets first. All emergency apparatus have to pass by, or especially off these arterial routes. Then Public Works come back and they do cleanup. But you have to first wait. there's phases that happens. And I would suggest to some of you guys, ride with some of them to see how these phases work.
We will be happy to schedule ride-alongs after the pandemic, or everybody's vaccinated.
So that's all I have to say. I'm so, no, I'm not sorry. I don't apologize, but
We appreciate you, and you're an expert in all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Smith. I just want to reiterate some of what was said. We've been educating since Nemo, the blizzard that happened over 5 years ago. And right after that blizzard, I remember saying the same, okay, everything was education. How many years do we need to educate? Is this kindergarten through high school, or do we have to go for PhDs now to educate someone? Because quite frankly, I'm tired of educating adults who need to just follow the rules, who need to simply move your car, shovel your sidewalks. It really doesn't take that much to understand. I mean, you have a sidewalk, it needs to be passable for not only ADA, but, mothers with strollers, kids, people getting to work, etc., in a safe space. And I'm sorry, sidewalks and snow in the Northeast have existed since I was born, which I won't give how many years that is, but a long time, and before me. So really, education, I'm with Alder Smith. I'm done with education. It's time to enforce. It's time to give out citations. I'm glad Lori is on board. But at this point, it's time to just say, you know what? If you can't do it, we're going to show you how. And fine. So thank you for your passion, Alder Smith. I'm right there with you. I'm going to ask the committee if they have any further questions before I open it up to our other alders that are on the line in case they want to ask questions, as well as the public. So committee members, any further questions? Alder Roth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had one final question. I think it was Jeff who made a reference to impact on the budget. I'm just curious if we have a final figure on how we came in versus there's no budget, and hopefully we will get no more snow. I guess it's not, that could still happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Roth. Committee members, anyone else? Okay. Any alders that have joined this meeting have any questions that have not been answered, or any concerns that they would like to voice? Let's see, I don't see any hands up. At this time, before I open it up, yes, Alder.
That was a question.
Is anyone?
I didn't know if there was an answer for the budget.
I didn't hear anyone answer, so I thought it was, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Alder Roth, was that a question on our snow budget for this season?
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, I think right now we are pretty much at the budgeted amount. So that includes material, the overtime, the contractor that we use. Yeah, and I think city's generous how they budget the amount. I believe it's around 600,000. With the events that we had, we, I think, are very close to that amount of money. But we can supply you with the exact dollar amount. I think we might still be waiting on a few bills for the last event that we had.
Thanks a lot. And that's fine. Just having that general ballpark is helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to know for the record that Alder Frank Douglas has joined us. Welcome, Alder Douglas. Alder Winter, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question is how much coverage can we reasonably expect the two public space officers to to provide? And do we expect, to Alder Smith's point, that they will be generating revenue to cover their, it sounds like, and then some, to cover their, the cost in the budget?
I'm going to answer for Lori because she is actually new to the department, not new to the city. She understands public space, the importance, and the citation process. Again, we've tried over the years educating, as my friend Honda has stated. If we enforce and do more enforcement, again, Honda did a lot, one individual covering the city of New Haven. We now have 2 inspectors. We will be giving out warnings and citations for all ordinances, not just snow. There is a dollar value, of course, associated with that. It's hard for me to put a value to that right now. But again, we can be aggressive. We would want the support from our alders in doing so, and I think we will get that. But I think you'll see some changes anyway with just Lori and Mark Clinton right now moving forward. Hopefully that answers your question, Alder Winter.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just want to add to that, you guys were very generous in funding 3 positions for the division. We did have to repost the position because we exhausted the list with our first hire from public space on the inspector side. So that is going through civil service right now, and we hope to have a 3rd person for the division hopefully by the summer.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Any other alders? Yes, Alder Smith.
If I may add, I think we need to fight for more inspectors, because when I first started, there was about 6 of us to cover the whole city. And if we want to see success in a clean city, we need more inspectors. And to answer your question, Alder Winters, you can generate a lot of revenue from this department, which is many different fines. So this is a revenue builder, definitely a revenue builder in this department. Once again, if I was one individual to cover the whole city can create fines, you have 2, it's going to double that. Once they give the fine, they go back and do the citation, it will definitely double. Thank you.
Well, we have high expectations for those revenue generators. And if Alder Smith was able to generate over 100K with just she being in that position, then we're expecting at least over 200. So beware out there. Also, in regard to inspectors, are the LCI neighborhood specialists allowed to give out citations? Is there any way that maybe LCI can help out in that regard? I don't know who can answer that.
I could try to answer it, Frank, of LPI. No, so my staff can't. It's a different union, and challenge. It's always challenging trying to do work from another union. So the housing code inspectors possibly can. That work is within their union, but I know they're overwhelmed with the three programs they're running with in housing code enforcement. But to answer your question, no, my staff can't. But that's why we stuck to flyers and other means of trying to get people's attention other than citations.
Okay, thank you for that. At this time, I am going to open it up to the public. I did see a hand up. Miriam Grossman has her hand up. And actually, Missy, while you let Ms. Grossman, excuse me, and I do have 2 testimony that came my way via email. One is from Chris Schweitzer, who supports expanding snow removal from bike lanes and trails. The city needs to move away from car-centric transportation to reduce GHG emissions as soon as possible. Again, that was Chris Schweitzer from Elm Street, and also Kevin Glick. as a New Haven resident, 20 Francis Hunter Drive, I want to let the city of New Haven, I think that says it's supposed to be thank the city of New Haven for plowing the Farmington Canal Trail all the way to the Hampden line after snowfall events this year. I understand the city is considering whether to continue this practice in the next year. I hope that you will consider continuing the practice. My family uses the trail for both transportation and exercise. Thank you, Kevin Glick. Okay, and at this time, Miriam, if you could state your name and address for the record, you may testify.
My name is Miriam Grossman. I live at 152 Temple Street, apartment 410 in New Haven. I just got an email beforehand saying I couldn't testify, so it was a little bit of a confusion from the public testimony email address said the public couldn't testify, but I know you folks said I could, so here I am. Thank you to everyone who's clarified a lot of the questions I've had. So several things that concern me is that it seems like the city from what I'm hearing tonight, the city seems to be leaning on the private property owners to do a lot of things, to clear the intersections after snowstorms, make sure that you can, actually walk at a corner and, press the, access the button to press for the traffic light and all that, and bus stops. And I just feel like it's a lot because it's not happening. Like at bus stops after a snowstorm, like there were multiple bus stops where, they were not shoveled out for over a week. And these are bus stops near St. Raphael's Hospital and near Tower 1, Tower East. And one time I had to crawl. I went for a COVID test and I had to crawl over a snow pile to get to the bus. The other time I had to, lean on a lamp, like a signpost to get to, hoist my way onto the bus. Someone with a wheelchair will never be able to navigate that. So I just feel like it's just to rely on private property owners to do the right thing. It just leaves people who rely on the bus and can't navigate these snow piles in a bad situation for over a week, and that's just not acceptable. I think there needs to be more than telling the private property owners they have to clear their bus stops or the intersections, because it's just not happening. Another problem I have is that after a snowstorm, when I often walk on the Yale side of the street, because Yale sidewalks are pristine, but often the sidewalks on the other side of the street, be they city or private property, they're never as good as Yale. And it's like, why can't we get whatever they have? I know they have different equipment. Why can't we get their equipment to get our sidewalks looking like theirs? And even the Farmington Canal pictures, I think Yale has plowing as a cleaner plow, although I don't use the trail, but I've seen the pictures and I've seen the comparison between city side and Yale side. The other thing is that there are some repeat offenders who don't never shovel their snow, be they businesses, be they banks who own homes, or even the state, like some of the roads, some of the sidewalks by bridges and things. You never see them shoveled, and the city really needs to sit down with these people and really go over that. You could look at click fix requests from 7 years and see the repeat offenders. They're there, and you can and really go over it and really make sure that they're aware of their responsibilities. And the other thing is that when you see click fix and you just look at all the snow requests and look at how many, but at best you get an acknowledged. Maybe you'll get a couple of them that are closed, but many of them are open, never acknowledged. Some of them get a form acknowledgement by Public Works saying your request has been acknowledged, we'll get to it when we can. But if you're a resident and you see 30 snow requests, maybe one closed and 15 acknowledged, you lose faith. You don't think that anything's happening. You don't think that you don't think the platform is doing anything. You think why am I submitting a complaint onto this platform if I'm just going to get a form response, if at all? And it just becomes very demoralizing and frustrating that you're using this platform to report things, and the city can get revenue by going to this private property owner, and then they're not doing it. And that's just, and that's also very frustrating. And as for the bus stops, it's a problem, not just New Haven wide, but other cities in New Haven too, where you call CT Transit, they say it's not their job. You call the town, they say it's not their job. Or if it's a state road like Boston Post Road, they'll say it's a state's job. So you could be literally on a hamster wheel where you'll be calling, you'll call, each person will tell you it's not their job and no one wants to actually do it. And then you're waiting in the street for a bus. And then it feels like the city is trying to prioritize, cyclists, bus riders, trying to show, maybe post-pandemic that public transportation is a good thing, to show that, to treat public bus riders like second-class citizens, like we'll get to your bus stop will be taken care of when we get to it. It just doesn't seem like it's consistent with the values of promoting public transportation.
Miriam, thank you for your testimony. I think the departments heard loud and clear, even from this panel, about the bus stops, and your testimony only confirms what needs to be done. So thank you for that. And, you know, I don't know if there's anyone that wants to address any of that. The bus stop concerns have been addressed, I believe, and the questions have been asked. We just now await for action down the road when it does snow. As far as Yale, you know, they don't have as many sidewalks as we do in the city. And I don't know if anyone wants to touch on that from the city side, Becky, regarding Yale and their cleaning.
Their equipment is a number of bodies that we would love to have, but don't necessarily know we can match.
The sidewalks on Chapel Street are a type of contract called first snowfall to last snowfall, or first flake to last flake. So the Perco contract on Chapel Street, College Street in the downtown, people come out at the first snowfall and continue plowing until the last snowfall. Most contractors that we deal with, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to speak for DPW. Most contractors, property managers deal with is after the snowfall is when most contractors come after a snowfall. So the first snowflake to last snowflake is very expensive, and it requires a lot of manual labor, but it does do the job really well.
Thank you both for that. You know, we have work to do, and I think the departments work very, very hard to address these concerns. And I'm sure, I mean, we're in crazy March or unpredictable March. Hopefully we won't have any more snow. I look forward to the warmer weather next week, but again, we never know. So if we do have another snow fall and it's significant, at least all of these concerns, or most of them, can be addressed at that time. I see a hand from Aaron Good. Aaron, are you on? And if so, state your name and address for the record, please. Misty.
Yeah, hi, Aaron Good, 45 William Street. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and committee members for holding this workshop and opening it up to public testimony. I just have a few brief points. One, the city has recently begun to plow the Farmington Canal Greenway Trail, as you've heard, plowing it all the way to the Hamden town line after major snowfall events. We've been asking the city to do this for a long time, as previously the trail was only plowed as far north as Division Street, which is done by Yale University. And this is important because it is a transportation equity issue. This is a corridor used by people of all backgrounds in our community. It's a vital resource, not just for much needed recreation and exercise during the pandemic, but as an essential transportation route used for commuting by our Dixwell and New Hallville residents going to jobs downtown and at Yale. In 2020, there were 150,000 trips taken on this trail year round. And about half of these trips were taken for the purposes of commuting to work, school, grocery shopping, and other required functions. And I have personally witnessed in the last few months that as soon as the trail is plowed after a snowfall, walkers, bikers, joggers, and commuters immediately start using it again. The demand does not simply end in the wintertime, and our plowing policy should recognize that. So I don't know whom we have to thank for this change in policy, but I do want to applaud the mayor and Mr. Pescasolido and Mr. Carone for making this change, and request that the new policy continue in the future. Secondly, with respect to our ordinance and the need to possibly tweak our snow clearance ordinance that I think Deputy CAO Bombero alluded to. Obviously, we have this longstanding policy of property owners being responsible for sidewalk snow removal and clearance. And there are reasons for doing that, and generally it works fine. But, you know, as Alder Smith said very eloquently, enforcement is an issue. It's always going to be an issue because human nature is is what it is. Now, what some cities do, and as a pedestrian safety advocate, I think we should consider doing this, is have the city assume some responsibility for sidewalk clearance on where the city is not necessarily the property owner, but to assume some responsibility for that after major storms. So what some of these cities do is say that the city will do sidewalk plowing if the snowfall reaches a certain amount in a certain time period, or in certain high pedestrian traffic areas, in areas with a lot of senior citizens or a lot of bus stops, etc. And I think tweaking our ordinance in this direction would do more to protect our pedestrians, our senior citizens, our bus riders, without completely removing the default responsibility and liability of the property owners citywide. And I think with the right equipment, this can be done in a way that does not substantially increase costs for the city. I think the city already has a lot of the mini plows and other equipment that would be required. So I did circulate an article to Alder Roth and Director Housekeeping about a city in Michigan that has adopted a very proactive snow removal policy that does protect pedestrians, seniors, transit users, and they've implemented a lot of very positive best practices that I think we could learn from. And maybe that article can be shared with the committee for your review. Finally, I just had a little issue that has to do with road salt. In my neighborhood, we're now having a real environmental justice problem because Gateway Terminal is now the only place in the entire state where wholesale road salt contracts can be fulfilled. There was a road salt transfer station in New London that just closed because of operational changes at the state pier. But now we have literally twice the number of road salt trucks lining up in our port area to get road salt, and they're idling their engines and causing an enormous amount of pollution. And this may or may not affect our snow plowing operations, but it's a very serious environmental justice problem for everyone who breathes air in New Haven. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you as always for taking the time to hear from the public.
Thank you, Aaron, for your testimony. Doug, do I see your hand up?
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Yes, Madam Chair, I was wanted to comment on the prior question regarding snow and bus stops. Would that be appropriate right now?
Sure, go ahead.
Something that I've noticed is section 27-32 in the municipal code, ice, snow, sleet, duty of abutting property owners to remove or abate. In section A of section 27-32, it specifically states that a 42-inch pathway is required, and it specifically calls out handicap ramps as requiring that 42-inch pathway. I believe that if you added a bus stop to that language, that would also give us the necessary enforcement duties to be able to fine a property owner who does not clear a 42-inch pathway to the curb line for bus customers to get to the curb. The DPW plows their goal is to get to the curb. They're going to get to the curb and throw the snow onto the sidewalk because that's what they do. The property owner is then responsible throughout the cleanup operation to maintain that 42-inch pathway. Right now it says the handicap ramp. We could also add in a to the curb in one location of every bus stop for every property.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, again, I'm hoping that the snowstorms have ended, but we still do have snow on the ground as we are holding this meeting. We need to remember this though for even next year. So in case we don't have any more snow falling this year, we have to remember this for the next winter season. This isn't going to go away. Nothing's going to change. If we can make really big notes on everything that was discussed tonight, implement a proper plan, particularly because we have more enforcement folks. We're going to be expecting changes next year with enforcement and citations, etc. So I appreciate everyone being here this evening for this workshop. I think it was productive and informative and passionate, and everyone I think our city departments do a good job. They try really hard to make it safe for everyone, but this is a partnership with the residents as well. And if the residents don't comply, that's one puzzle piece that's missing. So if we're going to please everybody, we have to work together. So again, I appreciate our departments taking the time out this evening, my colleagues for taking the time out and asking questions. And at this time, if no one has any further questions, we can move the item.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the item has been moved and seconded. We had a lot of discussion on it, but if anyone wants to make any further comments, here's your opportunity. Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Thanks, everyone. Again, all in favor of adjournment, starting with myself, I'm a yay. Alder DeCola,
Yay.
Alder Antunes,
Yes.
Alder Roth,
Yes.
Alder Winter,
Yes.
Alder Singh,
Yes.
Alder Smith. Okay, any nays, abstentions? The majority are the yays. We are adjourned. Thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.